Just what is the future of Penn State football if they don't win right now? What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe that Penn State will win the national championship in 2025? I'm going to follow it up with one more. What happens if they don't? Right? I'm also going to take this opportunity to remind you that we have an audio podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast. And for those that are willing to leave a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcast, I am willing to put in the mail to you one of these stickers. I put a whole bunch of them in the mail just the other day. It's my way of saying thank you for going to the audio podcast, for subscribing to the audio podcast, and for rating and reviewing the audio podcast. We're trying to grow that one as quickly as we can. I realize that there are those folks that want a longer version of the show. You're going to get a longer version of the show on YouTube too. But until then, and after that, we're going to have 4 episodes a week that are about 30 to 40 minutes that you can consume all at once if that's something that you want to do. I genuinely believe this is going to be the best Penn State team we've seen since last year's Penn State team and 2016's Penn State team. I believe this because you're returning a bunch of the pieces that help get you to the college football playoff semifinals for the first time, right? It was one thing for Penn State to make the college football playoff because it's a 12-team playoff this year. It's another one for them to win their game against Boise State and get to that game against Notre Dame where Drew Allar threw the game away. That's what happened. Last pass he threw was to Notre Dame, okay? So what do we got? We had Tom Allen up and go to Clemson after what was a really outstanding year as defensive coordinator at Penn State, helping produce an Abdul Carter that was a first-round draft pick and had the audacity to ask to wear Lawrence Taylor's number and then Phil Simms' number, and both of them people told him to, are you high? Are you okay? No, I'm not going to unretire my jersey number so you can wear it. That aside, great player, outstanding player. Also busted up his shoulder against Ashton Jeanty, but don't say that too loudly because you've got Zane Evans coming back. You've got Dennis Sutton coming back. They're going to be good on defense, and they've got what was the architect of the best defense in college football last year in Jim Knowles to run their defense, okay? They're going to be okay on that side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be a little bit interesting, but only when you want to throw the ball. Now, they have what is probably the best tandem tailback duo in the sport, and Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen. Between those two guys, you're going to have 100 yards rushing on the ground. You're going to have dudes that can make the guy at the next level miss. And James Franklin has always been really big about this. He says, look, the offensive line's job is to get you to the second level. After that, it's your job. Every now and again, we're going to call a play where we get a guard to push up and take out a linebacker. We get a pulling guard out in front of you. But for the most part, we get you to the second level, and then you do that thing that running backs do, which is make people miss or run through them to get us those extra yards to turn what is a 3 or 4 yard play into an explosive play. And both Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton do that very well. So between those two guys, you got everything that you need to run the football. On the outside, it's going to be a little bit more nuanced and different. Gone is your do-everything tight end in Tyler Warren, which also means you're going to have to come up with somebody entirely different to throw the ball to because great wide receivers that were at Penn State, no longer there. They had to go get Kyron Hudson out of USC, who you're asking a lot of, a guy that hasn't caught more than 460 yards in a season, hasn't caught more than 50 passes in a season. You got in a pretty great player in Trevor Pena, who had a public dispute with his head coach, Fran Brown at Syracuse, about what he's getting paid. He had 84 catches, 941 yards. All right, you're okay there, right? And you got Devontae Ross coming in, who comes from Troy and was the only 1,000-yard receiver that's going to be on that team next year. Now, I think the wide receivers and the pass catchers are not that big a deal at Penn State. I think this because James Franklin thinks this too. They don't really make a habit of trying to turn their passer into a guy that goes 4,000 yards. It's not what they do. But with Drew Allar in particular, they really don't like putting the ball in his hands and got to have it situations. This is even what Andy Kotelnicki joined up after putting together one of the most explosive offenses in football at Kansas, trying to do the same thing with some gimmicks and some nice, cool misdirection in the Penn State offense. But push comes to shove, they couldn't punch it in from the 3, 4, 5 yard line against the best team in football in Ohio State. But they don't have to do all that much to get back to the playoff, and they could absolutely take that L against Ohio State this year and still make the playoffs, still win the Big Ten championship, because we've seen how that thing can go. What is frustrating to me is you're going to have a lot of people talking really loudly and really well about Penn State Nittany Lion football in 2025 for all the reasons that I just cited to you, but also because they don't play nobody in their non-conference schedule. Like, it's actually kind of insulting when you look at it. And I want to make sure that I get this part right, because honestly, I couldn't believe this when I saw it. Nevada, that's your opener, August 30th. Florida International, that's your second game. Villanova, that's your third game. And then all of a sudden you got to start playing Big Ten teams like Oregon, right? So you got Oregon, Ohio State on the schedule. But after that, everybody else you play is somebody that you should beat. So we're looking at another James Franklin team that can go win 10, 11 games. But against the best teams in football, they don't tend to show up that well. Think about it this way. Last year, Penn State plays Ohio State, they lost. Last year, Penn State plays Oregon in the conference championship game, they lose. Last year, they play Boise State in the playoff game, they win. They get to a game, which was pretty outstanding, against Notre Dame, they lose. It's almost as if this team can only beat the teams that it's supposed to beat, and none of the teams that are on its level. Like that's what's frustrating about Penn State football. Even more frustrating is Penn State fans don't really watch this show. By the way, this is probably going to be another one of those segments that underperforms, like the Texas A&M segment. So when people ask the question, hey, why don't we cover more teams? It's because y'all don't watch those segments. You don't care about those teams. I want to talk about the teams that you care about. It's not about what I care about. It's about what you care about. If you cared about who was going to win the Mountain West, I'd give you all the Boise State, UNLV, Colorado State content that you could want. If you cared about who was going to win Conference USA, I would talk to you about Liberty, Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky till you were blue in the face. But you don't. You care about Big Ten, SEC, some Big 12, some ACC, but for the most part, the teams that have 10 or less next to their name. So we talk about Penn State here only because you're going to see more of this content, I think, especially as we get toward that Oregon game, which is going to be a big deal, which I think is going to be a 9 a.m. kickoff Pacific time, which makes it a big noon game, which is going to be interesting for Oregon because, you know, the West Coast teams, they hate playing that morning game. And that might help Penn State get a win against a team that it lost the Big Ten championship with, and they're going to have the better quarterback, people think, in Drew Allar. I think Dante Moore is a more talented quarterback, but is he the better quarterback? We'll find that out. They've also got a pretty great running back duo there too, and DeCorian Moore, among others, are going to have to step up for Evan Stewart, who looks like he's going to be out for the season. To say nothing of Dylan Thieneman, who transferred over from Purdue, I think one of the better safety nobody talked about. Bear Alexander on that defensive line. Isaiah World is going to be denied Dennis Sutton as much as he can handle on the outside. It should be a good game. But Penn State winning that game by double digits, that's going to convince me that that team is for real about winning a national championship. Now, Buckeye fans would be the first people to tell you they got to come to the shoe. And we make a habit of beating Penn State. They don't make a habit of beating us. And that would really bug me if I'm Penn State, because Michigan has won a national championship and beaten Ohio State 4 straight times. I don't think those things are at odds with each other. I think if Penn State had the kind of brass in its back to go and give Ohio State the what for and the how now, we would be talking about a team that is playing for the national championship. But because, for whatever reason, they can't get past that hurdle that is scarlet and gray, or even green and yellow, we're talking about them losing a game on Drew Allar's arm to the Golden Domers. That dude has not beaten a team that I think is capable of winning the national championship yet. Full stop. And I can't get behind a team with a quarterback who has not shown me he is capable of winning the big game. No, quarterback wins is not a quarterback stat. But throwing the ball to other people is. Coming up short when somebody else doesn't is. I watched Riley Leonard find a way against Penn State. I watched Drew Allar throw the game away. Whenever the game has been on the line, he hasn't been the guy to come through. I need that to change. I need that to change. I want that to change. I want him to have a hero moment. I really do. But until such time as he does, this is how I expect it to go. They'll win 10 games. They might even make the Big Ten championship, but they will not win the national championship, in which case Penn State continues to be Penn State because James Franklin continues to be James Franklin. Are you going to do better than him? I don't think so. So you're going to have to find a different way to try to break through, or you're just stuck.